Hey people, what's good? Welcome back for another video. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I hope everybody's doing great. As you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, today we're going to be doing the next part of the Knight's Armament M110K3 series, in which we'll mostly be installing this, which is a 15-inch SR25 URX4 to complete the build. Now, to get right into it, order of operations today is as follows. First off, the Centurion Arms MK11 Upper, which I'm using because Knights doesn't sell stripped uppers on their own, is a thermal fit, so we're going to have to heat it up with this heat gun. Though if you have a torch, you could do that, but this will allow you to get this thing heated up nice and slow in a controlled manner instead of possibly, damaging the anodization or the metallurgical properties of the metal. So once we get that heated up, I'll grab the barrel out of the freezer. So heat expands and cold contracts. So hopefully between those two, we'll be able to get a nice even thermal fit. So when this thing normalizes in temperature, it'll be nice and tight, not too dissimilar from actually doing any shim bedding inside of a gas gun platform. The SR25 URX4 is sometimes called a barrel nutless design, but in a way it already has an integrated barrel nut. So you see this, it's kind of hard to see, but there's this flange on the inside here that acts as a barrel nut in which you install your barrel to the upper receiver. And if you've ever done one of these before, you know that every barrel has a barrel extension in which there's a flange that'll be flush with the front of the upper receiver. So this will squish down against that flange. And if you have the proper torque set, and if you bathed it in rock set like Knights likes to do, then this thing will lock up nice and tight. This is an improvement over the URX3 and the URX2, and I have an install video for that in the top right as well for the SR15, in which those would, just kind of screw on just like this would, and then there is an internal threaded section which you would screw in another barrel nut or a jam nut really, and then torque that down. So this apparently gives a lot less whip, a lot less shift than the URX2, than the URX3, and well, Knights has fielded a lot of guns that have killed a lot of people, and I kind of trust their judgment with that. So once we get that thing installed, and you need to have shims installed in it because as per the guideline, and you should always print them out so you don't have to keep looking back at your phone, you want to get the rail flush at the 11 o'clock position, or position A over here, and you need to get to position B, also known as top dead center, with at least 60 foot-pounds up to a maximum of 140. So ideally you'd be somewhere in the middle of that, 90, 100, whatever it is. With torque, and that's why you have the shims there, each 4 thou of shim will give you about 30 degrees of movement, or in one direction or another. Knights gives you shims that come with the URX4, and the Knight shims are pretty nice. You always have to use the black shim, but all the other shims are notched, and depending on the amount of notches, from no notches to 4 notches, that tells you the thickness. But if you can't get your hands on these, or you don't want to pay the tax for them on Gunbroker, you could use the SRAX100, that's the part number for the 308 Spikes barrel nut shim kit from, well, Spikes. Now these aren't notched or anything, but they're steel, they're good quality, and you could just use your fingernail or a feeler gauge or a micrometer, or just go by touch to think of the thickness. So I should have enough shims. Tools that you'll need at the very minimum is a URX4 barrel nut wrench and a SR25 AR10 reaction rod. So this barrel nut wrench is from Constellation Concepts. Knights does make one, but good luck finding one for MSRP or finding one at all. What I like about this is that it takes a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch drive, and the side of it also has a wrench flat for a 1 inch crow's foot. So ostensibly, if you were converting a URX4 to a URX3, you'd put in the crow's foot and a giant, comically large cheater bar, breaker bar, and break that thing off. Because again, Knights is probably torquing this thing to max spec or close to it, and also just bathing it inside of a vat of rock set, right? So you need that, and the way this attaches is pretty easy. It has a foot section and a claw section. The claw section goes on the spine where the Picatinny rail is, and this is like a Delrin or a nylon. That'll go right next to the QD socket, which is where you want that center of force, and then obviously you need the barrel nut wrench. So you would hand tighten this down, keep shimming it until you get to that position A, 11 o'clock position, and then torque it the rest of the way. But if you torqued it up to top dead center without 60 foot-pounds, you need to take it all apart, start again, add another thinner shim just to be able to get that minimum 60. And again, we're trying to aim for a little bit higher. Then once that's done, we'll install the gas tube under the gas block. This is a Centurion Arms tabbed gas block for the Centurion Arms MK11 barrel, which goes with their upper receiver. It's not a Mark 11 profile by any means, nor is it a Knights profile in general. A real Knights barrel has kind of a hybrid medium heavy contour, and they use the Mod 2 gas system, which uses a castle nut to lock down the gas block, and then the gas tube is actually threaded on. But even if you use that, you would still install it afterwards and then get access to the set screws from underneath the M-lock portion. Now, there's a channel on the inside that prevents you from having the gas tube installed beforehand, not too dissimilar from the URX2 and 3, but there's a little bit more leeway in this channel than there is in the URX2 and the URX3. So if you needed to, you could just stop short of top dead center to get it a little bit slanted if, you know, having this on the side would give you better purchase or better access to the set screws, and then we'll torque those down and we'll be off to the races. And then once all that's done, we'll install the flash suppressor kit. That's what Knights calls it. This is their closed-time QDC compatible flash hider. Most reference pictures I've seen of the M110K2 and the K3, not that there's many out there, have either this or the 3/4 flash hider. However, again, the Centurion Mark 11 barrel is in more ways unlike the Knights in that it is 5/8 by 24 threaded, not 3/4 by 24 threaded, and all the 3/4 devices are face mounts, whereas these are shoulder mounts or shoulder timed with the shim set. And then I also have extra shims from older Surefire devices as well, and this gives you compatibility with these guys over here, which I've done videos on, and I'll link those in the top right as well if you wanted to get my thoughts on it. And then other than that, rock set to install the gas tube and the gas block, just to make it a little easier, this Real Avid template, gas tube roll pin starter punch from Brownells, a 5/64, I believe, roll pin punch from Real Avid, and then this is by Real Avid and then tweezers because I'll end up dropping one, but I have two pins just in case I damage one of them. You're going to need some arrow shell for the install of the barrel, because again, two unlike metals could create galvanic corrosion, especially in the part of the gun where literally the chamber's at. That's going to go through the most extreme of the heating and cooling cycles of your gun, depending on your schedule of fire. And then some cotton applicators to put that on the inside of the upper receiver. And the reason I'm not touching it is because I've preheated it already. So yeah, I'm not going to touch that. And then other than that, hammer for the roll pin, and then with a rubber insert installed. This is also by Real Avid in case you need to tappy tap in that barrel, you know, the last way. And then some isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle, brass brush, microfiber cloth in case you need to clean up the threads on the inside, especially if you touched it with your oil, just to make sure that that rock set adheres and cures if you're going to use rock set there, but for sure on the threads of the barrel for the flash hider. And that'll be it. And then random wrenches of different sizes and a torque wrench for the set screws and the gas block. And like I mentioned, a reaction rod and then appropriate torque wrenches, 1/2-inch drive for the URX4 wrench, and then a 7/8 crowfoot for the flash hider. This one just happened to fit on a 1/4 inch. And you want to make sure that your torque wrenches are high quality. If not, you know, you're going to be off. But you should get them calibrated no matter what. They're Lexivons from Amazon, and I've had them calibrated, so they're good within 1.5 foot-pounds of force. So that's it. I'm going to tear down over here. We'll transition over to the vise. I'll go get the barrel out, and then I'll do some heating cycles with the heat gun. This is used for like cable management for like heat shrink stuff, but it gets stupid hot. Aluminum's pretty easy to heat up anyway, and then we'll get going. So I will see you there. Oh, yeah. All right, well, unfortunately, my audio and the video at certain parts of this recording, which took over an hour to do with all the different steps, went out. So I've just recovered what I could. A lot of the frame rate dropped down to like less than a frame per second, it looked like. A little bit faster than that, but still you get the point. So here's the barrel outside of the freezer, just showing you a quick temp. And then I neglected to mention that in the intro, but you should have one of those infrared thermometers. It just makes it really easy. Now, as far as heating it up, again, you could use a torch or you could use like a underslung flamethrower for all I care. But I think that's a Diafield or a Dynafield. It's some Amazon Chinesium brand that's mainly used for heat shrink. If you're doing a bunch of cabling projects like for UAVs or whatnot. So that's what I use because it can get this stuff super hot. I've done thermal fits before with it. It just takes a couple minutes, and this video is already sped up ×2, and it's been cut out, but I think this portion took me nearly 15 minutes just going pretty slow. So this is actually towards the end of it. And your target temperature here is around 250 or so Fahrenheit. you go a little bit more. And you remember, like, it doesn't take a lot because we're only needing to move this a couple thou overall. And the other thing is that you see this is oriented in a different direction. It's upside down just because it was easier to get this thing clamped down along the rails of the upper receiver. If you have like a bigger padded vise or actually have a SR25 AR10 sliced vice block, you should obviously do it in the correct orientation. Since it's easier to locate the trigger pin, you're actually going to see me mess this up a little bit later. So I'm just going to keep heating it, and I already cut this off pretty much all the way, so I should almost be done with it. But just go nice and steady. I get a couple of bad readings because it's actually really hard to heat this thing up and hold this thing, the thermometer in the frame. But there I go with the barrel, wiping the frost off. And the one thing I actually didn't end up doing here was putting in, or at least the whole length, any of the arrow shell. But you see, I immediately knew what I did wrong. I was like, oh shit. So I started spinning it because the barrel actually comes up to temp, but I still had to actually hit it one more time with the heat gun to get it back up to temp, which might seem a little bit counterintuitive because it's like, wait, the aluminum is, you're going to heat the barrel underneath it. It's going to expand, but it actually works out. It takes a lot more energy to heat up the steel. And also it's kind of covered in that aluminum envelope. And this thing was cold, which is why I always say start with a cold barrel. So I actually had a notched piece of wood, just some junk from the lumber. And then I'm hitting it on the end of the muzzle, on the end of the crown, to seat it that little bit. The part of the video I wasn't able to recover, I show this in painstaking detail. It took like 30 minutes to get it to move that last, quarter inch or so. Of course, it wouldn't have been so bad if I had taken my time to heat it up a little bit more. It's probably closer to 300 and had it oriented the right way to start with. But definitely don't just go malleting on the end of your barrel. And this would actually be helpful to have some feeler gauges, and that's what I do. I think I had a 400th of a millimeter, like whatever the thinnest gauge is, and you see I can't sink it in anywhere. But even if it did sink it, I would, still think that putting the pressure on it with the URX4 would get it the rest of the way. So I'm just doing some last minute fitment tests, just taking a look at it, making sure I knock off whatever, wood that I got on the muzzle, and then adding more arrow shell along because I'm going to start with the URX4. And actually my audio catches back up after I shut the camera off around, this point. I realized what was going on because this is actually a second take that I molded in. So where I left off was that I'm using 2 of the medium shims from Spikes and then the black shim from Knights, and that gets me here. I think I should be fine because that shim I took off was literally the skinniest one that I had. So here goes nothing. So again, spline either side of the QD socket. I'll just do it behind it. All right. So we're going this way. And then I'll set this guy to about 70 foot-pounds. And I just want to keep a hand underneath this while you're doing it so it doesn't bend forward, because the Geisley reaction rod, the shank of it's actually pretty small. And that looks about right. No, you can't really see that. But the bridge is fine. I'll just get one more confirmation. All right, we're good. All right, yet another voiceover section because, well, I'm a moron. This is actually a couple days after the Rage recording. I had gotten tired of messing with all the video and trying to see what I could salvage here. So I just went up and did this part last and then forgot to film attaching the gas block. But honestly, it's pretty easy. I realized that I didn't get the gas block on video, so I'm like, well, I might as well get this. So I ended up taking the muzzle device off while it was curing, which is why you see me wiping all this stuff off. And I also wasn't too happy with where I had it torqued on before. But you can see there I have the index to the 9 o'clock position just about. So there is a set amount of shims depending on the position to get it over to the 11:30 position. Unlike the URX4, which takes a ton of torque, this does not. You know, you're looking in the ballpark of like 18 to 22 foot-pounds is optimal. So you want to get to about the 1130. 18 should get you about dead center at the 12 o'clock, but it's fine if it's a little shifted left or right. And it really depends on you, right? Like I know some people who do have their muzzle devices indexed differently, but it's not like I'm taking the suppressors off of the guns all that often. Maybe for this one until I get another QDC suppressor, just so I could keep a dedicated cam per gun. Then for whatever reason, I just start messing with the lock ring over here, the lock ring pliers rather, to get the other shim off. Just because again, you need to go back and forth and keep verifying fitment and whatnot, getting the muzzle device to the proper position, even though it is closed tying again, because it's the ratchet system does have that index, right? It just doesn't screw down onto it, unlike a 4-prong or 3-prong from Surefire. But again, even they have an index notch that you want to make sure is timed. Really, the only things you need to make sure that aren't timed are like JMac hub devices, but it is what it is. So around here soon, I should be doing another jump cut and getting to the point where I actually start to torque this thing on. And again, 7/8 crowfoot rock set on top of the threads, not a ton of it, and just send it home. Again, on the lower end, I think I went 20 foot-pounds and over traveled just a bit, so it's like in a 12-15 position. But that's all she wrote, man. I mean, this install is pretty simple. All right, folks. Well, that does it. The M110K3 build has come to a conclusion, at least the build part of it. Hopefully you learned a little bit something through all that cut-up video about how to properly install a SR25 URX4, how to thermal fit a Centurion Arms MK11 barrel, and how to install a KAC muzzle device. Next, I'll move on when I have the time to function testing, just make sure that the gun doesn't blow up and, check out accuracy comparisons and, true it up also at some point, do a head-to-head A3 versus K3, even though, again, this isn't a real K3 because it's in 6.5. I'll probably do another custom CAC build down the road, 2 of them at least, a K7 and a K1 as I get the parts and, well, the funds for the parts and find people willing to sell them to me. And again, I'm really sorry about all the different cut up video and whatnot. If nothing else, this just tells me that I need to get a dedicated camera, probably 2 dedicated cameras, so I could get better angles and make sure that I don't have issues filming on my cell phone like I am. Now, the Commo content is coming. I know that more than 70% of you are subscribed to the channel for that. I'm finishing up the deep dive into signals intelligence and the intelligence cycle or intelligence life cycle. You'll learn all about that in another hour-long video. And then I'll be doing some more STR content before shifting over to ATAC with imagery and how to set it up, WinTAC and stuff like that. I never know how to end these videos. I should probably figure it out since I have, a little bit over 1,000 subscribers now. Thanks for you all putting up with my bullshit. But if you got family, spend time with them, especially if you got kids. There's nothing in this world more important than family outside of yourself. The next thing that you could positively impact is your family. So, with all the craziness going on, stick together, man. And then, community and whatnot comes second right after that. Thank you for watching the video. And if you haven't already, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment down below if you want to see more of this. Mount Let the Hellfire.